Good morning. Welcome back to the Football Terrace. Thank you very much for tuning in with us today. Hit that like button, hit that share button as well. We're here for the next little while. No set time limit. We're going to be here with some transfers to talk about. Of course, the fallout of Man United's humbling defeat yesterday. Another very maybe fortuitous but good victory for Arsenal as well. It's been an exhilarating start to the Premier League season. And we want to gauge your views and we want to gauge your opinions with everything that's going on right now. Of course, Leicester pulling off another brilliant signing this morning as well with Cengiz Under, very talented winger. I'm really excited about seeing him in the Premier League. He has been linked with some of the big boys in the past as well. So it's going to be interesting to see, how he actually gets on in the Premier League, etc. Weird link as well. Jesse Lingard today. That's mad. United lose a game and then the media start lying to us that United might get 30 million for Lingard. Can you actually fathom? Can you actually, for a single second, anyone that thinks that's true? They say in life it's the hope that kills you. And I feel like that's exactly what that kind of story is there to do, to sort of sucker you in and make you believe that it may happen. And then when it doesn't, there's like meltdown. And I think that's almost like the point, isn't it? Like when it doesn't happen, everybody then will have like a complete and utter meltdown and be panicking and be angry and everything else that goes along with it. And it'll just, that's the point. It's crazy. But do me a favor, hit the like and share button. We're going to delve into some more of these stories for you now. We're going to start off with Alex Telles. See, man like Dan came on the show today, devil in the details, and spoke about this. And listen, I think he pulls on good points. Simon Stone this morning has tweeted out, and he makes a hell of a lot of sense. He says that Man United have held talks for Porto's Alex Telles, but no agreement has been made. Sources suggest the deal is nowhere near as close as been reported. And this is why I said yesterday with this Alex Telles deal, it sounds great. There's an air of excitement within me. However, I didn't want to count all my chickens because the media has learned that, and like I said it on Friday, the media spent 2 or 3 days winding up Man United fans in the expectation of a defeat yesterday. They got that, and it's been poetry in motion for them. Poetry in motion for them. It really, really has. You need to be careful who you take sides with on this. You really, really do. When you let the wolf in the door, at some point he's going to turn around and eat you. Always remember that. But the Alex Telles deal is there. It's doable for Man United, but it does appear to be some way off from happening. So it may not happen at this point. So I think for me, it's a real difficult one. I want it to happen. I'm just not getting my hopes up. I feel almost defeated by it, and we'll see what happens in this space. The Lingard deal, I don't believe for one single second that we'll get anywhere near. I don't think we'll get anywhere near £20 million for him, let alone this £30 million. Mate, if we get 30 million for him, in fairness, I'd have to go and shake Ed Woodward's hand. I mean, that would be the greatest. If you get £30 million for Jesse Lingard, it's the greatest piece of business in Premier League football history. That's why I can't believe that it will happen. Strip Bear here says, remember Terry saying 3-0 to United against Palace? If we play Palace again tomorrow, I'd put the same thing on. You've got to remember, as football fans, we can be reactionary in the moment in a game and react to decisions and results. But yesterday's defeat doesn't change my stance on Ollie, doesn't change my stance on Manchester United. We're still a superior team to Palace. We'll still finish well in front of them in the league. We had a very bad day at the office, a number of mistakes from coaching staff right through to players in the first team. And we got caught. We got caught with a couple of defensive mistakes and an absolute disgraceful penalty that never should have been given. These things will happen. United will win games this season that we don't deserve to win either. And this is just the run of the green. It's upsetting and disappointing. It was the first game of the season. I've expressed how disappointed I've been in the players, But there we go. Everybody gets predictions wrong. And we know that because on the Flick app, which you can download in the description below, barely anybody got the prediction right yesterday of even a Palace win, let alone a 3-0 win. Everyone got between 1 and no points. So, yeah, it's one of them things to me where it's not really a bother getting a prediction wrong. The same thing with the Zaha situation. Still think he's a bang average player. That's actually why yesterday's more embarrassing. You know, you let a player who is beyond average, who's overhyped, who has barely anything of substance to his game, you let him score 2 goals. A man who scored 4 goals all last season, you let him score 2 goals against you. That's the embarrassment of the performance, and you have to take that on the chin. And that's the thing. That's what Alpha still does for you, right? You give an opinion, you give a prediction. When you get it wrong, you can face everybody and say, I got that wrong. You don't hear me making excuses for getting it wrong. But it doesn't mean I'm going to change my opinion and be very reactionary and go, oh, I'm gonna melt away and say I'm sorry. I'm not. Stand by it. No top 6 club is coming in for Zaha, as far as I can see. No top European clubs coming in for him at this moment. When they do, then I'll change my opinion. Simple and as straightforward as that. Someone here says Zaha is better than James and Rashford. Yeah, but you guys say that James and Rashford are rubbish. So that's great. Was he the tallest dwarf? Still doesn't make any sense. If they're not of the, it don't make any sense. Everything you're saying don't make no sense. So we're not going to get into those rows anyway. It's as simple as that. And we can all get things wrong, but I'm strong enough and man enough to admit to it. It's just a shame that some of you don't have the decency to admit that. But that's your weakness and your lack of character and integrity as a human being. That's absolutely nothing to do with me. The deal for Arsenal with Leon over Hassem Aouar. It says here that both them and the Thomas Partey are at the forefront of a 4-man transfer shortlist for Arsenal, claims the Express. Arsenal are reportedly desperate to sign a midfielder this summer, with Aouar and Partey believed to be the pick of the bunch. So the headline says, like, that's the latest. And that's an interesting thing for me. Nothing's developing in that deal, Arsenal fans, at the moment. He's available for about £50 million. You've simply got to pay it. You've got to raise the money somehow. Let's see what happens in that space. The reason I brought that story up is a lot of people have been asking me in comment sections and DMs to get that done. It's as simple and as straightforward as that one. Terry, we clearly need a centre-back and a quality defensive midfielder and a left-back and a right-winger urgently. Bro, we're never going to do that in one summer. So people have got to relax. You've either got to wait for it, wait for that to happen or relax. And I've heard people today say Ollie has been backed. And they name all the players that we've bought. And by the way, when you look at yesterday's game, we should be winning. There's no excuses for that. Ollie has been backed. He's got to now perform. Half of you don't rate the players that we've bought in anyway. So if Maguire and AWB and Dan James and Igalo are not good enough, if Bruno is a flat track bully and a stat packer, as you've said, then how has he been backed? They spent a lot of money, but we bought trash. And if we bought trash, then why is the expectation so high? Get your story straight before you start chatting shit. Elite KJ on the show. What you saying, bro?
Hey, man. I'm good, man.
Good. I mean, we're here talking transfers. We're here talking like a bit of a fallout from yesterday. First of all, on the Alex Telles situation, where's your head at with this?
Yeah, we ain't getting Alex Telles, man. Like let's be honest here. I feel like this is another situation where a player has been offered to us. We wasn't really looking at him before, so we're umming and ahhing about the price. We'll take too long to decide what we're gonna do, and then he's going PSG. As soon as I heard PSG involved in it, I'm like, yeah, like this is not gonna go our way, innit? So yeah, I don't believe we're gonna get Alex Telles. We haven't bought a left back in 7 years, Terry.
Very true.
7 years. We've had Luke Shaw and then makeshifts ever since. And I would love this Telles deal to be real, but I just don't see us going for it because of this faith we have in Luke Shaw that this board and the management team have, and this faith that they have in Williams. Now, well, I'm not sticking it on Williams at all because he's just coming to the team, but we haven't signed a left back in 7 years. And 7 or 6 years, whatever it is, and I don't see us starting again anytime soon.
Yeah, I understand that, mate. And for me, we know we need to go and get these deals done. But there's just something about this Tellus deal. The only saving grace is it's Simon Stone that said that things are not really close to happening, and this is where fans have just got to be level headed. I have a feeling it might not happen. At the same time, when we got links on that Saturday with Donny van der Beek, a lot of the journalists were like, "This is close." He kind of come out and said, "Oh, there's murmurings. It's not beyond the realms of possibility, but let's see." And 24 hours later, he was a Man United player. So these things can escalate quickly. The interesting thing is this: a lot of people feel that losing yesterday in the manner that we did will trigger will trigger loads of new signings coming in. My view is like, well, that worries me even more than not signing people, because if our decision makers felt that not signing anybody additional was fine and we were good enough, for one result to change your mind in itself means you're being reactionary. And we shouldn't be reactionary. There should be a plan of these set players that we want, and we're working towards them. And I actually think that's what's in place. I think they're working towards set individuals. Alex Telles may be one of them, maybe he isn't, but I think Devil in the Details gets it right. You've got the Regulon deal, and someone actually clicked up a video and put it on the internet yesterday. They cut out me saying that Fabrizio Romano says that negotiations have gone into the final stages for a total agreement, and they cut that bit out. And then there's me saying, so it looks likely this deal is like, I think I said something like this. So it looks like this deal is almost a certainty to go through, right? And that's the thing with these links. The way that the agents are selling these stories into the media, they're being presented in a way that makes you think it's close to happening. Look how we were lied to about Thiago. We inquired, he wanted Liverpool, we walked away, we went and worked on the business to get that Donny van der Beek. But in that 3-week period between from talking to the agent and him signing for Liverpool, there was a story every other day that we were still involved, which means either the media lied to us or the agents lied to the media. So we were being manipulated into thinking that, as an example. And I think that's where, listen, Man United made one major mistake in the build up to this in this summer, is that and it was Ollie's mistake, and he's got to own this. That comment that we're going to try and take advantage of this market because we're in the position to do it. It stinks of Woodward saying 7 years ago that we can do things in the market nobody else can. It makes everybody dig their heels in, and it makes everybody try and exploit us in that way. And I actually think when we then go into the negotiating rooms, people look at us like, if you're going to be that arrogant, we're going to screw you over. And I wouldn't even be surprised if teams club together to make sure that gets done.
Yeah, I've said it before, and I say it again. World football don't like us, fam. They hate us, bro. And they every deal that comes around, and they see Man United actually in for it, they're gonna make it difficult. I think that's why United don't actually make bids until they're absolutely sure that the bid will get accepted, because they already got bad PR as it is. If they keep putting in bids and all they do is get rejected, like the fan base would be frustrated, and then the fans would hop on that and then start making more noise. So, like, for me, it's like, from when Woodward said that, and from when they know when United's rich, and from when we are not renowned for like having multiple contacts in the game and having good relations with clubs, I think that's why clubs are like this. Like, I don't know if we talk to them on a regular basis. We don't use the loan system that well as other clubs. We've started to use the loan system well this season, which I've praised in terms of our young players. But if we was using the loan system well, that means we're constantly talking to agents, we're constantly talking to clubs. We can build rapport that way. But I don't think we have a rapport around world football.
I think you make some good points there, and there are elements that we need to grow and develop on. But the point is, I keep saying to people, I tweeted about it this morning, and where I've become, and I get people are ranting, and I get people are angry, and I've seen the same people say things like, name 6 or 7 of our first team and say they're not good enough, and then at the same time say the manager isn't good enough, and at the same time they expect us to challenge for a title. And I'm sort of sitting there thinking, am I the dumb one? Or does that not make sense? If you don't rate the players as a collective, if you don't rate the manager, how can your expectations be high? Now, they may say, no, my expectations for the club are high. Cool. But if the club keep buying substandard players and keep hiring, in your opinion, substandard managers, Why is your focus the players and the manager and not the people that continue to put these people in power? And that's what, and I get that. And then if your focus is on the club and the board and you want a strategy, then be clear with what your strategy is. Because I don't have an opinion. I don't have a problem with people having differences of opinions. My problem comes in when the opinions are so wishy-washy and mixed up. They don't make sense. So what we're seeing now is let's just go out and sign 4 players right now. Well, what if the players that we want are not available? I don't care. There's got to be an option. But that's the same wishy-washy sort of scattergun approach that we had for 7 years. I also saw you moan about. So tell us what you want the strategy to be, and then you stick to your guns, because it's the consistent chopping and changing and the moaning. You know, yesterday it's Ollie needs to be backed. Now it's, well, he has been backed. He spent all this money on players. Yeah, but you're telling me that but you also say that Maguire isn't a very good player. So whether we spend £80 million on him or not, you're saying that he isn't good enough anyway. So how has he been backed if we've bought the wrong player? I don't understand this logic. Man like Mo's with us now. What are you saying, bro?
Oh, Terry.
No swearing, please. But go on.
No, I'm not. Listen, I'll be honest. You know, yesterday's game, that just proves right now that they're just setting Ollie to get sacked. So clearly, man. You see Ed Woodward's face after the game. I could see the sacking going to happen, but I'm not saying anytime soon. But that's not his fault, because he's been thrown under the bus. Terry, do you know my biggest fear? I don't think any big top managers are going to come here no more, because they know what Woodward and Glazers are like. Everyone started to clock on. So I really feel sorry for Ollie. There's nothing I can say to Ollie like, get him gone. I genuinely feel sorry for him. I genuinely do, because he's been set up to fail. And yesterday's game, I know yesterday's game, okay, we've lost, yeah. But are we trying to say another manager would have won that game? Honestly. Because we looked absolutely dreadful. Bruno, Pogba, Martial, all of them, they had a terrible game yesterday. Well, I can't think of one player.
No, you're right. You're right on that, Mo. And that's also what's confusing, because people keep telling me that when we play brilliantly, it's because the players take it upon themselves to perform. But if that's the case, then that means the players didn't want to perform. Why didn't they do that yesterday? Like, see, for me, it was I think the biggest problem with the players, I don't think it's coaching, because we've had Louis van Gaal, who is is a world-renowned coach. We've had Jose Mourinho. We know he's had his problems with people, but, you know, world-renowned coach when he came in. We've had Ollie, who, yeah, the jury's out as whether he's good enough or not, right? And I get all of this. I think what's happened at Man United is the same thing. For instance, you know, we talk about Tottenham, and Tottenham have this. I think Tottenham have like a mental deficiency, an inferiority complex when it comes to playing certain teams, and when it comes to being at the sort of the pivotal end of a season, because they don't have a heritage of winning or an expectation of winning, or one that they've handled well in the past. I think Man United have lost their edge. And, you know, we spoke about this at the end of last season when we had the games against Southampton and West Ham. And every time we've had an opportunity to jump back into the top 4 last season, we nearly always blew it. We did it in the end against Leicester. You know, we get into that Sevilla game. By the way, we played brilliant football against Sevilla. We bossed the game in large parts, but we couldn't finish our dinner. I think there's an element of a winning mentality that's been taken away from Manchester United. And when that happens, it's something that's psychological. And I saw that in the team yesterday. You've got players like Paul Pogba that looks, there's a top-class player just making terrible mistakes. Bruno has lost a little bit of something. And that's my worry, that as a football club, we can't get out of that mess. And for me, it's leader-led. And we've seen it now happen. And I'm not saying it's happening right now with Ollie. It could be one game, we could bounce back from it. But I still think there's an overarching lack of belief within Man United that we can get ourselves back to the promised land. That when we're, you know, opening games of the seasons are always tough, especially with what Man United were facing from the media. The media this last week had been on us, fans are on us. There was so much pressure to perform yesterday, and there was the players collapsed. Do you get where I'm coming from? And I think that when we, and I don't know how we get there. I know most of it has got to be done by the ownership, the board, the management, and the team on the field of play. But there's also an element of, now, there weren't a lot of United fans that excited about yesterday. It was all, I felt like, I said it, let me give you an example. So my dad's a comedian, right? And I always remember my dad telling me that when he was a young comedian coming through the ranks, so when you go to comedy clubs and no one knows who you are, comedy clubs can be the worst place in the world for a young comedian, because the audience doesn't know you and they look at you and it isn't, I'm here to be entertained. They look at you and it's, go on then, make me laugh. And I feel like Man United fans yesterday, a large percentage of them looked at the team and it was this case of go on then, win. As opposed to, come on guys, I'm with you, let's go together. And I understand why a lot of United fans are upset and angry, but I just feel that the whole system, from fans to board to the management, at times we create this kind of cauldron of pressure that we just can't handle anymore. We go mental when it doesn't come off. And yeah, I was angry yesterday, and I think everyone's justified in being angry. But I just feel like every time we get into a position where we could leapfrog a rival in the league today, or we can progress to the next round, rather than it being let's support the team through that, it's this element of like, do it now or you're dead to me. I don't know if that makes any sense what I'm trying to say. I just feel it's we get to these pivotal moments and it's do or die, and the pressure becomes so intense. I'm not sure if the players, because of 7-8 years of falling from grace, have the ability to handle it. How do we get through that? Better coaching, maybe. Better players, maybe. Better, more consistency from the board, absolutely. But I do think there's an element of fan behavior that needs to happen. Look at the replies today on tweets from Man United. Any player that's tweeted, look at the responses. It's the level of aggression. I mean, I must have read about 200 United fans calling Ollie the C word, wishing bad things on him.
Do you know what?
How does any of that help Manchester United?
Do you want me to mention names on Twitter? He's the worst guy. You heard of Mike? Some guy called Mike.
Yeah, but listen. That guy,
worst people,
but that guy isn't a Man United fan. He isn't a Man United fan. He's one of these rivals who's pretending to be. So he's blocked for me. I'm just talking about people that are just out there abusing. And we've heard footballers talk about this, and I know me and KJ had this conversation. These football players say that they read it, they hear it, it impacts them. So we get angry with a player, so we abuse them, and we make it even harder for them to perform. It becomes a vicious cycle. Isn't it amazing that suddenly the majority of Arsenal fans are behind their team and they're playing a little bit better? I don't know. Maybe, it's chicken and egg. Maybe the team got to do it first. But Man United were very, very good between January and the end of the season. We have a couple of poor games and we're straight back to the nastiness. And I just think there needs to be more support for the team. Whether you think they're good enough or not, you've got to get behind them a little bit more, support them a little bit more, back them a little bit more, encourage them a little bit more. And until we do, I mean this, until we do that as a fan base, and I'm talking a noisy majority, I still think we're going to sit in this slump. Fans always say, we're the most important part of a football club. Then take ownership and responsibility for your behavior as a fan base at exactly the same time, because you are hugely impactful in this for the way the club is run and for the way the players are feeling and where you're treating them. When fans in the ground were verbally abusing Paul Pogba at the end of the 2019 season, everyone condemned that, didn't they? Everyone condemned it. And everyone said it was wrong. How dare they do that? Disgraceful. And they're right. But how about the millions of people tweeting Man United players abuse, tweeting their family members abuse today, writing nasty things about them? You telling me that doesn't impact them in the same way? Of course it does. In some respects, it's going to be worse. They're going to be at home in their private life, opening their phone. It's there. Players' sisters, players' brothers, players' parents being attacked. How is that going to help Manchester United Football Club?
It isn't. And I said this to you yesterday on the private chat. United fans right now, what they're doing is taking their transfer frustration and then piling it in with the football. And that needs to stop. Like, we need to separate our hate for the board and our slowness in the transfer window from how our team is playing. Because as much as we weren't good enough yesterday, that was our second game all season. We've only had one preseason game. So expecting us to switch it on is tough for any football team, let alone a United team that we already know is inconsistent.
Yeah.
But yet, because we are so frustrated with the board slowness and inactivity in the transfer market, getting disappointed because all our targets seems like all our targets go other places. We then pile that on with, well, it's also the team's fault for not being good enough, and that's why no one wants to join and stuff. And it's just like, let's separate the two things. When it comes to the football, just focus on the football. Don't bring your frustration with the board into the game. And when the game's done, analyze it, whatever. But then we go back on giving the board and the owners smoke, and it. And I said, I cannot wait. Like, it's got to a point now where before everyone saw me. Man was gassing the Avengers thing. Man was excited for the transfer window. I've got to the point now because it's gone so toxic that I cannot wait for the transfer window to end, no matter what we do, just so we can just focus on the football, and that's all we get to talk about. Because right now, it's not helping anybody, not helping the fans, not helping the players, not helping the coaching staff, or I don't really care about the board. To be fair, let me be honest.
Okay, Jay, you make a lot of sense there. And like I say, people being angry about yesterday's performance, I've got no issue with that too. Players were poor selections. Ironically, the substitutions were made at the right time. They just didn't have the impact that we wanted them to. And then some mistakes kicked in. I think you make some good point that the fitness levels are not quite there yet, and things will click in later on down the line. But there's a comment here from Stefan that says, Terry, how can we be positive and get the Glazers out at the same time? Makes no sense to me. Calling Ollie a CUNT. What's that got to do with getting the Glazers out? You know, abusing players, tweeting Harry Maguire's sister last night, calling her a slut because her brother lost a football match. What's that got to do with the Glazers being out? That, and by the way, she then tells her brother that impacts her brother's psyche. That makes it harder for him. All these things perpetuate. You know, if you were consistently abused online all day, every day, people that say it doesn't impact them are liars. It impacts everybody psychologically. It at some point it wears you down and gets to you. And by the way, even like you ain't getting it to the degree these people are. Even if you say, you know, you might make a funny comment on here, and a few people say a few things in a live stream, you can want the Glazers out and support the players on the football pitch at the same time. My view is this, and it's one game. So am I writing the season off? No. Of my expectation of top 4 change? No. If we do sign Telles and we bring in Sancho, then my expectations of finishing securely in the top 4 change? Absolutely not, because we're good enough to do it. However, if we don't sign Jadon Sancho, it's not going to make me dislike Dan James or rate him even less as a player, because it's not Dan James's fault. Now, should he have started yesterday? Not for me, but you listen to what Ollie told us. Well, there were players that literally haven't trained because of how long they had to give them a break after the end of the season, and they didn't have the fitness level. Some players only had 1 training session. Imagine, this is the irony where fans have got to calm down a bit. Imagine we played the 2 or 3 guys that weren't fit and they pulled muscles and were out for 3 months. Ollie would be ridiculed for taking risks with their health. But yet, if he doesn't play them and he puts somebody in who is fit in a position that you don't rate, he's attacked for picking the wrong team. That's the kind of negativity I'm talking about. It's looking at it and saying, we were poor yesterday. Dan James and was awful, no doubt about it. Rashford was invisible. But even some of our stars yesterday, our absolute stars, couldn't pass a ball 5 yards. Now, Dan James, on a scale of 1 to 10, let's say he's a 6 out of 10, 5 out of 10, say. And Pogba's a 9 out of 10. Pogba's game yesterday was every bit as bad as Dan James. Now, when we're reviewing the match, I'm going to criticize Pogba more because he's a superior player. Pogba, though, gets more praise overall because he's an absolute superstar. I love the guy, and I can't wait for him to be part of our team. But Dan James starting, as an example, is there because we still haven't built the strength of the squad out. Plus, you couple it in with having no pre-season. Now, some people can say there's no tactics and there's no game plan and nothing else. You know, they weren't saying that when we were slapping teams up and we overturned a 14 points goal difference towards the end, you know, of the season. Suddenly, then, it's looking nice and good. People have got to stay in their lane a little bit here. For me, we do need more players. I do, and this is my point, right? I'll stay true to myself here. I think what my overarching saying is this. I think we have quality players. We have 2 top-class goalkeepers. We've got a brilliant right back. We've got a brilliant centre-back in Maguire. We've got brilliant midfielders in Donny van der Beek, Bruno and Paul Pogba. We've got excellence in Martial, excellence in Rashford. In those players there, I look at those guys and go, all of those individuals, I don't want them sold. I want us to build a team that incorporates them as individuals. So that's why my expectations to win are high and why I was frustrated yesterday. Even without pre-season, we should be able to pass balls 5 yards, and we should be able to create chances in games against a team such as Crystal Palace's level. The players let up yesterday. The players as individuals were poor. Why do I think that happened? My personal opinion, reflecting on it for 24 hours, is the pressure cooker that was created by the media and fans over the past couple of weeks. By the way, that wouldn't have been there if we'd signed Reguilon on Tuesday, or wouldn't have been there if Sancho was in our squad. And that for me is a massive part of this, which I think needs to be addressed, that we as fans we have a responsibility within this. And I think we truly do. And I just feel that people, the point, for me, people are just inconsistent with their point on this. It's 1 minute the squad isn't good enough. The next minute the manager isn't good enough. The next minute the board aren't backing the manager and buying enough players. I'm like, yeah, but yesterday you said the squad was brilliant, bruv. You said like we've got, the best midfield in the world, yet they got dominated by McCarthy. Oh yes, the manager's tactics are not good. Really? But what about when we go on a winning streak of, all those games? Oh, that's when the players turn up. What's she telling me the players turn it on and off when they want? What is it? Like this, and that's the point. Fans are so angry, they become incoherent, they become inconsistent. And I've done it, and I know I've done it. And that's what, do you know how I know they do that? Because that's what I did. And for me,
Terry, I think
go on, mate.
Terry, I think it's the small teams, it's habit. We got a problem not beating them. That's what I think. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that mainly comes down to both manager and players. Now, why do you beat big team? Like, say, example, we're playing Man City next week. Yeah, I'm confident we can beat them. You know what I mean? I'm confident we can beat Chelsea. Yeah, obviously, I don't know about Arteta yet because Arteta beat us and Liverpool on the club. Yeah, Ollie hasn't beaten them yet. He only took points off them. But when I'm talking about Man City and Chelsea, when he beat them 3 times, yeah, 2 times Chelsea and 3 times Man City. Yeah, how come we're losing against the smaller teams and not taking? What is it? That's what I'm trying to get. It's annoying. Like, what is it? People are saying it's the manager. People are saying it's the players. Whose fault is it that we're not beating the small teams?
It's not. The thing is, yeah, like this. I genuinely believe this is very much an isolated incident yesterday, and it is to do with just the overall fitness. Because Crystal Palace, I think that was their 5th game overall.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and people are not taking into account like football fitness and match sharpness is a real thing, and so in that instance, Crystal Palace are better prepared and more sharp in that game. So it was always going to be a struggle to break them down and beat them when they've played a game where they had to be defensive and focus and got through it last week.
I think as well when you start the way we
Mm.
did and you have that mistake, KJ. The mistake didn't help either as an example. I think that's part of it. We've got Brighton next. We've got Brighton and Tottenham and Newcastle and Chelsea. So, we've got like 4 big games in the next 4 weeks in the league coming up for Manchester United. And, I'm hopeful, and I know everyone else is, that we signed some players in that time and we improve things further. I just feel that, Ollie out now is just ridiculous, in my opinion.
Ain't going to change anything.
Overly abusing the players is ridiculous. Like, criticize the performance, but everyone's going over the top today. Yes, it isn't a great start. Yes, it isn't where we want to be. But suddenly, half the squad isn't good enough. Maguire isn't good enough. Rashford isn't good enough. And by the way, the same people a lot of people that back Pogba and back. There's another group that are like, Martial isn't good enough. Pogba isn't good enough. And that's where these arguments just, you know what? Like, we've got quality players in this team. I stand by them. I rate them. For me, it's more of a mental thing. And yeah, you're right. The fitness levels yesterday are part of that because it's hard. You get 60 minutes in and your legs are knackered. It's difficult. But I think the biggest problem at the moment is we create, and it's every few games we do it, we create this pressure cooker for our players where it's like, it's do or die. And I just don't know. I don't remember any game as a Man United fan my whole life, us doing that to the team. We wanted to win, but I remember losing finals as a United fan. I remember getting beaten big games and outplayed, and you'd be annoyed and angry. You talk about other fans, but then it was like, you'd get it out and go, right, next game, Tuesday night, let's go. Now it's like, if you don't win today, this is how it sort of feels to me. If you don't win today, I'm done with you. Imagine it's like you're in a relationship and every day you're giving your partner an ultimatum. It's not healthy. And I think Man United fans, and they're doing it for the right reasons because their expectations are high, but I think we're going about it in the wrong way. I really do think there's that. We had Nelson to the call there. Nelson, what you saying, bro?
He's muted.
Yeah, I had to mute you, Nelson, because you called in. You were in the noisiest room in the world. I don't know if he's going to speak. A lot of people here saying you guys are making excuses. Listen, man, it's not about excuses. It's about, this is what I love about, right? Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah, hi, Nelson. That's really noisy where you are, bro. I can't have it. Honestly, it's awful. I'm sorry, mate. Try and go somewhere quieter for us, mate. people are like, how did you lose? You tell them why you think you lost, and they go, that's an excuse. You're like, well, you asked me to give you a reason. I give you a reason. You're calling it an excuse. I love football fans. Devil in the details here. So he's been saying it for ages. These players have horrible habits. Yesterday, as a result of it, was a result of a perfect storm. Coming off a 61 game season and no preseason was a mountain too high to climb for these players. And I think that's a really fair point there. And you also know as well, if we beat Brighton, then we beat Tottenham, then we beat Newcastle, it'll all be sunshine and rainbows again. And that's why I want to try and remain as consistent as I can in terms of, I'm not going to jump on Ollie out. I'm not going to start. Listen, I don't think Lindelof is good enough. By the way, Lindelof will be good enough in 90% of the games he plays in. The problem you have with Lindelof is you get these kind of games every now and then. And, as an example, Luke Shaw could probably go the next 10 games and not make that same mistake again, but they're there. And that's why everyone wants better players that make the mistakes on a less frequent basis. And the one thing we saw yesterday, which is abundantly clear, and it isn't a criticism of Maguire or Lindelof, because they can't do nothing about it. When we're pushing forward to attack and we need a goal, we're so susceptible to, especially with AWB not being on the pitch, to counter attacks because we don't have a centre back with any speed. And
we do. They just don't play.
Yeah, yeah. Well, look. But everyone knows I like Bailly, but Bailly comes with his own issues. Bailly has made as many. Remember the handball in the Bournemouth game as one. Bailly makes a lot of mistakes as well. It just gets covered up because he's fashionable. People like him. He rushes into a lot of tackles. He gets twined up a lot. I remember, I remember how bad he was in the Paris Saint-Germain game, and we only become a better team in that match when he got taken off. So let's not sit here and rewrite history. Barring his first season.
I'm not trying to say Lindelof no. is any much better than Lindelof. I just feel like him and Tunsabi and potentially Mengi are just better fits. And I personally would rather see that than two guys that don't fit each other on.
And I agree with you. I agree with you on that. I would like a bit of pace. For me, I want to Tuanzebe, I'm not sure about his body holding up. Seems to always be injured. I would just rather see someone with a bit of pace next to Maguire. I think it would change the dynamic of Manchester United massively, as an example. But we see what happens. Lindelof. The frustrating element is
he's a weakling.
He is a weakling. Yeah, you're right, brother. He is. Yeah, he ain't up for the fight. He's that guy. Like, imagine it's Sunday League football. He's the guy that pulls out of all the tackles and says, "Oh, I got work on Monday. I'm not making that tackle." But he ain't got that excuse. This guy's. I look at it this way: no footballer wants to get injured, but when you're being paid what they get paid at this level, when your life's set up forever, for me, you put your body on the line every single game. For me, if you make that tackle and you get barged over and you dislocate your shoulder and you're out for 6 months, you make that tackle. When Paul Pogba put his hands up and stopped the ball from hitting him in the face? Nah, bruv, you get your nose broke. That's my opinion. As someone at this level of the game, you get your nose broke, you get your teeth knocked out. You do that for the team. That's always been my view.
And that's why, if that's the case, that's why you need everybody to pay, because man, them were.
Well, no, but you've got to do. Yeah, but you've got to do it with. There's got to be control in it. So I'm not saying throw your body into every tackle, because that's actually one of the biggest problems as to why Phil Jones was always injured and Rafael da Silva was always injured. They'd go into tackles they didn't need to make. What I'm saying is, yes, you can't be getting bullied. You've got to use your strength. It was one of my biggest criticisms of Lukaku. For a man with his athleticism and physicality, he got bullied off the ball. It was like he wasn't up for the fight. And that's what I want, someone who wants to put their body in at the right times, if we get that right. And that's where, like, I don't care if it's a passion merchant thing. That's where I want someone to have that fight and have that determination. I'll give you an example, because he's a baller as well. Sergio Ramos. Like, he would not have got barged off the ball by Zaha yesterday. He would have put Zaha on his bum, but with a shoulder barge. Vidic would have just gone, bang, get out of the way. Do you get where I'm coming? It would have just been, don't even think about it. As a general rule, all players make mistakes at certain times. But yeah, I want to see more of that. And that would be a change I would make. I think the Brighton game's a good game to do it against as well, because again, we're not, making that change for the Tottenham game is a big decision. I would look at it, and I don't know if I might look at Mendy, and just say, do you know what? He's a talented kid. Give him a go against Brighton and see what happens. That'd be my view.
I would, but I think just to move it back onto transfers, I just saw that Jesse Lingard link with Tottenham, and apparently Dele Alli is a key factor in if that goes through or not. So either Dele Alli to United the other way, or he gets moved on and Jesse goes and
Bro,
so forth. Would you take Dele Alli at United for
yes,
Lingard?
yes, I would.
Yes.
I tell you as to why. I've been critical of Dele Alli in recent times, but if you go back to a lot of what I've said, I think a change is as good as a rest for him. A change is good. I think he's mentally done with Tottenham, and I don't blame him, by the way, because forget Man United for a moment. We may never win Man United have had the worst 7 years in my lifetime. Well, my living memory. I don't remember things between 1985 and like 1989. I was up to 4 years old, but it's been the worst Man United period of my lifetime, and we have still won more trophies than Tottenham. So, like, you look at a Dele Alli, I think that's in his train of thought. I would take Dele Alli tomorrow. I would pay Tottenham money and give him Lingard for Dele Alli. Dele Alli could be an exceptionally good player for us. I don't quite know how the system then works with everybody else coming in, but I would look at it every day. Every day, same is with us. What you saying?
Hello?
What you saying, bro? Every day, same. Speak up.
Hello?
Yep, speak up. Every day, same.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep, speak up.
Hello? Is that not better? Is that better?
We can hear you. Just speak.
Oh, right, okay.
Like we've been able to hear you the whole time. Just speak up, bro. Go for it.
Okay, about the Terry, was it like 2 years ago that I kept phoning in the show saying about that the fans have to take responsibility for their actions because it's just going to feed into the press, which is going to have an effect on the team. It was literally like 2 years ago that I'd phoned up like a few times saying the same thing.
I agree.
And this is it. It was like when that first goal went in yesterday, it felt like a knife in the chest, and it felt like a knife in the chest because of what's been going on in the past. We had that nice end to the season or whatever. You've got the transfer window debacle, and that you saw it manifested on the pitch. Yeah, it's disappointing to lose, and it's disappointing to see the players play like that. But this is the thing. When the season was announced, the date was announced, and it was said, okay, we're going to play the week after. I don't think there was anybody that didn't think we're not going to be ready for that. That's going to do us over. We're not going to be mentally ready. We're not going to be physically ready. It's not going to be enough, this competition. That's why it was so disappointing to lose the Europa League, because we all thought, God, we've put this effort in. We've got nothing to show for it, and it's going to do us in the league. But then by some osmosis, like when the predictions were coming out for the game, oh, we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And it's like, well, no, because we knew that he was going to come back to bite us. This was just the chickens coming home to roost. So yesterday's result or performance isn't really that surprising, because it is a pre-season team playing a team that was ready for the season. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not here to like get angry or dig out players and all the rest of it. It is disappointing when you see somebody like Marcus Rashford, because I said it after the Seville game. If he's not going to try and take people on or try and run, then there is no point in. It's like having Fellaini in your team and him not using his head or his chest. It's like it's pointless.
Mm-hmm.
So things like that are disappointing, and I believe that that's Lindelof's last game. How many times can he do it? It's just ridiculous. But
yeah.
We knew that it was going to be the case. I mean, I think it was as much mental fatigue as it is physical fatigue in that game. But it's like when sometimes if you have a pre-season and you go to a country, you play their local team, but they're halfway through their season and they either beat us or give us a really good game. It was the same thing. And then obviously we've got our deficiencies as a club, which is we have I've never seen a team with no width. It's like we're scared of that area of the pitch. It is ridiculous, and it is criminal. But as I said 2 years ago on the show, repeatedly, fans need to take responsibility for their effect on the team. I said it 2 years ago a few times. I'm saying it now. The people that are being, it's manifested. It's exacerbated by the board's inaction, because this is so I've said before about the Jadon Sancho transfer. It's not just the player; it's what it indicates. If we spend money like that on a player when we're already in the Champions League, then there's been a fundamental shift upstairs in the club, which is your point from 2 years ago when we were all happy about Jose, and you were like, "Yeah, but what about the board?" It means the fundamental shift, and because we haven't got that, it's created a shitstorm. That shitstorm is fed into the players. You plus that with the pre-season, and then you get that result.
Mate, on the fan thing, I do think you're right. And fans don't like to hear it because fans always want to pretend that, they're holier than thou. And I know I've done that in the past. I've always spoke about the way I spoke about LVG was just not helpful. And a lot of fans think, well, no one hears what we say. They do hear what we say. We saw, for instance, Jose, we all laughed at it, but Jose Mourinho's reaction to listening to a radio station question why he was the Tottenham manager. Now, that isn't, I almost guarantee, and it might have been my channel, right? I almost guarantee, I guarantee that players sit there watching YouTube videos. Players sit there watching, and do you know how I know this? So look at Arsenal. I was at the FIFA Best Awards. 3 or 4 Arsenal players turned up, recognized the AFTV boys, and they just won a game at the weekend. And Granit Xhaka walked over, pointed at DT, and said, "At the weekend, did we have enough cojones for you?" Because it was a couple of weeks after the cojones comment from Troy Deeney about Arsenal, and and it blew up on AFTV, right? How would they know? How would they know who these people are? They don't watch their content. Do you get where I'm coming from? How is it that a lot of fan channels have fallen out with the clubs over content they make, and they're not allowed to film around the stadium anymore if no one at the club is watching what they're saying and doing? They know exactly what's going on. So then footballers have come out and said that, the online pressures against them have made it harder for them to perform, damage their psyche, damage their mentality. It plays a huge part. And how people will then conflate my words and try to twist it and say, well, you're saying we shouldn't be able to criticize. No, but there's a big difference between doing what I did. I did shout and scream yesterday, no doubt. And I was angry. There's a difference between that and me texting, or not texting, I don't have a number, tweeting Harry Maguire's sister, calling her a dirty whore bag on her brother's shit. That those two things, and this is the problem with modern day people, and I mean this, they know that I don't even know if they can anymore differentiate between the two things, because everything now is about abuse. Very rarely do people criticize me. They just abuse me. And for them, they're like, no, I just don't like what you do. But why have you got to mention my kids having cancer then? That makes sense. That don't make sense to me. Like, it's a weird one. We're going to jump on to Kai here for a sec. Sorry, everything. Kai, what do you want to say, mate, before we end the stream? Go for it, bro.
Hi, Terry. You doing all right?
Other than my voice going, I'm fine, mate.
I could hear. I saw some of the show yesterday. Yeah. You need to calm down. Yeah, about the stuff. First of all, I want to talk about United, and then we'll talk about the fan thing. The United, I think United fans are overreacting. Yeah. I know how it feels, because at the watch along I also was kind of annoyed about the way we played more than the result itself. So I understand United fans, but the same day when you sit down and you analyze the whole thing, and you need to remember that you guys didn't even have a preseason, just like us. We had like 1 game of preseason, and players are still trying to get back into match fitness and all that. So fans need to calm down, and you can judge a team after 5, 6 to 6 games. I don't think you can judge them based on the first game.
Oh, look, I understand that, mate. And that's what, listen, I was angry yesterday with how he performed, and I won't change, because I think it was the reasoning around no preseason. I get that doesn't make Luke Shaw, Paul Pogba, Martial, these guys misplace the passes the way they did. It doesn't give him an excuse for the opening 45 minutes performance. I get, as the game went on, it became harder. We could have still created more. Even our goal came from their mistake. Like it was an overarching performance, but I think it's a combination of that plus the element of the fans. On your view, Kai, I mean, do you think fans overtly abusing their players the way they do? Do you think that has any kind of impact or any kind of damaging or lasting effect on the psyche and the ability of the football players?
Of course. If somebody criticizes you all the time that you're shit, at the end of the day, you're gonna start criticizing yourself, because people need to realize a lot of the time when these guys get abused, they're people at them a lot of the time. A lot of the time they retweet it, like you said with the AFTV example. Those guys watch it, because if you remember Oxlade-Chamberlain, he liked something about about Arsene Wenger not being good enough or whatever, right? If you remember that, he
Yeah.
liked it, and then he apologized because it was a mistake. So fans, they do, because they're intrigued, because social media is everywhere. I think a lot of clubs even require players to have social media to promote certain promotions that they have and sponsorships. So they do have it. So basically, at the end of the day, people need to realize those are human beings. And when you get down and personal to them and cussing them, cussing their moms, basically at the end of the day, they serve your club. They're working in order for your club to do well. If they do that well or not, that's for people above them to analyze and do something based on that, you know. But at the end of the day, they're human beings. And people need to understand they're not robots, they're human beings. And you can't
Yeah,
just go into a human
I
being
agree.
and constantly diss them and then expect them to do something for you that is positive.
And do you know,
It's not
and do
gonna
you know
work.
what's interesting about it, right? What I see in the United fan base is this element of certain people will defend Paul Pogba no matter how bad he is, but
Yep.
yet abuse Dan James to epic proportions. Other people will defend Rashford no matter how bad he is, but abuse Martial no matter how, like, even if he has the slightest mistake. And the hypocrisy in these people in itself, and then it becomes like a battle between different sectors of fans, and they end up just spending half their time abusing their own team, their own players, to try and elevate and win their own arguments and opinions. It's like yesterday, I did see more abuse and more trending from big names and verified people on social media of Maguire than I did Lindelof. And it's because, and I think that's because it was like,
just the proving right thing.
and I'm saying like, what? I mean, other than when he went to ground at one point yesterday, he went to ground at one point, and he went to ground at one point when he shouldn't have done and got a booking. Apart from that, like, I thought he had a good game. If Lindelof was as good as him yesterday, we might not have lost. But yet it's there, and it's like, okay, well, the guy I hate isn't being criticized, so I'm going to go and hate him. And it's like, you know, there were players that left the pitch yesterday. It's just mad, bro. For me, I just find it all, until fans get behind, you know, it's one of the biggest reasons why you see Liverpool and City become so successful. They have their, I mean, City, we all know they bloody cheated to elevate themselves into the position they're in. Yes, they couldn't be proven in a court of law, mainly because the evidence has a time stamp on it. And if it goes by, you know, it's time barred. But they still back their team regardless. Liverpool fans, you know, we know that, like, no matter what their club does, barring the furlough stuff, they attack them for that, they'll defend them on a football standpoint. And as much as it's annoying, I respect it, because they have their clubs back, man. Like, if you notice that Liverpool fans are really noisy at the moment, every time Bruno Fernandes goes down, why do you think that is? It's to defer from the fact that they have divers in their team. And I'm not bitter about it. I praise it. I'm like, that's what I want United fans doing. Rather than half our United fans fighting over who's better between Pogba and Bruno, attack other people's players at other clubs. Damage their psyche. Help us win things by going after other clubs. Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm just old hat, and I feel like we should all be on. You can criticize your own club, but there comes a point where it's like, all right, we've criticized enough. Let's hold it down. Like, a lot of Liverpool fans say that, you speak to the fan channels at Liverpool. If Liverpool have a bad game, the fans refuse to do fan cams. Their view is, we'll criticize bits of it, but we keep it in-house what you think about our players, and the rest of it we'll put out. And I like that. It's why have they? I think it works, and maybe that's another reason why Liverpool have become the best team in England, as social media is got up to a certain level, because they won't go public and attack their own players and team like other clubs do.
You know what it is?
Or maybe it's
the most.
Maybe the correlation and causation. I don't know. They may not be the same thing, but I think there's something in there for me. They're the only big fan base who doesn't attack their club, and they're the only ones who have gone from strength to strength in the era that social media has taken over football. Maybe I'm just clutching at straws here, but I do think there's an element of truth in it, you know. At the same time, we've seen, you know, depression in children, like at the same rate we've seen like depression in children rise with social media become more popular. There's a connection. And I think the same in football at the highest level. I really do.
Yeah, I agree with you on a lot of those points. But one thing that I don't is a phenomenal to me that's happening lately is legends from old clubs. You know, they would diss the current players. They would say all those things to the current players, but they never say that to them personally, or they criticize the club in the media, but they never actually go, because obviously they have more connection to the football club they played at than we do, right? So they can go into, for example, to Ed Edwards, right, and be like, look, this team needs this, right? If they go to them personally and say, look, you're not doing this correctly, or you're not doing this, instead of going to the media and bashing those players and making those players dislike them and basically hindering the relationship they have with the football club itself, it would be a lot more helpful than just them being toxic over it. This is one thing I like about the Chelsea legends. You never see them talking ill. I like Gary Neville as a pundit, and I'm sure you like him as a legend of yours. But at the same time, like, the stuff he says about United players are not really helpful. Same thing like with when Henry was talking about Giroud, how he doesn't think Giroud is good enough for Arsenal, blah blah blah. You're not really helping those players. You're just making them, first of all, not like you. Secondly, not motivated to play for the club.
Can I ask you what things Gary Neville has said about the players? Because I find that Gary Neville, when he's doing his punditry, actually goes the other way, and he's quite. I don't think there's maliciousness in what he says. So can you give me an example of what he said?
No, I've seen Gary Neville go at Paul Pogba with a fury, fam. I've seen.
But what? Like saying what? Saying what though? Can you give me an example?
Just saying that they've got the bad mentality. They're not fit for the club. All these different things. Like even yesterday, man had his Man United glasses
Gary
on.
Neville said Paul Pogba was not fit for the club.
Yes.
I'm just asking you, like, what did he say? If you're saying about yesterday, what did he say yesterday about?
I'm not talking about yesterday. He said nothing yesterday about.
Oh, okay.
I'm just saying.
So when then?
Even yesterday.
No,
he was saying that defenders in the United are not good enough. They need a new centre back. That's all fine and good.
They do need a new centre back. They do.
Yeah, but that's not
the point.
That's not being malicious. Well, that's not being malicious, though. No, I'm just saying you said it.
Saying your two starter defenders are not good enough is not helpful when you say it. In international level, you say it to a lot of people. He can say that to the club himself. He doesn't have to say it all over the media.
Gary Neville's job is to give his opinion. I think Gary Neville.
I've heard Gary Neville.
Gary Neville swings both ways in that regard. I've seen him go at players. I've seen him not. The interesting thing with Gary Neville is when he says something people agree with, he's God. When he goes for a person that you love, people say it's agenda. Gary Neville's issue, I think, with Paul Pogba is like a lot of the United legends with Paul Pogba who love the club still, is they feel like the way Mino Raiola treats all football clubs. There is especially old hat players. They don't like it. That's what it comes down to.
I remember him not being happy with that.
The only mistake Paul Pogba made in trying to leave was that interview where it was like, I think I want a new challenge. That just don't go down well. By the way,
Terry,
what?
Terry, this is a perfect example of how fans need to take responsibility. How many players are the top scorer, top assister in the league, and then get abused by the fans?
Mate, I agree with you. I'm not having a go at Paul. I'm not having a go at Paul Pogba. I'm making a separate point, and I agree with you. My point is at Man United, what was the difference between what David De Gea did and Wayne Rooney did in terms of trying to leave the club? Nothing. The difference is the way they went.
Was worse, actually.
So what?
The way De Gea tried to leave was worse.
And that's fine, and that's great, but that isn't the point I'm making. What was the difference? Is one was done in silence, publicly, and the other one was open statements, and it triggers and annoys people. That's what it comes down to, and that's why I'm saying. That's why I think Gary Neville has gone
for
the Pogbas of this world in the past.
True, but related to that Pogba statement, which obviously nobody likes, and I agree with that. But the fact of the matter is this, and this is where somebody made a point about them being a human being. I think it was Kai. The point of the matter is this: if you were doing a job and you were the best in your company, yet your clients treated you like shit and you had somewhere else to go, you would probably leave, or you would probably think about leaving.
Mate, I agree, and Wayne Rooney had his reasons. Wayne Rooney's reasons were the club isn't being ambitious enough, and I feel like I'm going to be wasting my time here. We hated hearing that as United fans, got him a lot of abuse, but actually, we look now back with hindsight. How right was Wayne Rooney about the Glazers back in
Terry, go on. Terry, how many ex-legends have you heard do interviews, whether it be Rio Ferdinand, Steve Bruce, Parser, all the rest of it, who were ignominiously kicked out or when they left the club. We always defend our club. But how many? There's like 5 or 6, 7 ex-players, legends of our club, that were treated badly by the club.
No,
So we
mate,
need to.
I get that. I get that completely, and it's another conversation for another day. But boys, I appreciate you all coming on, having your say. Everyone who's tuning in, please hit that like and share button for us, and we'll see you all again very, very soon. Bye bye.